I'm going to build a wood-burning stove for my workshop, and winter's coming on, so if I don't get some heat in the workshop here before it starts getting really cold, I won't be able to go in there and do any woodworking projects. So I had this water heater, and this is basically the inside of a regular gas water heater that you buy in the store, just a commercial type gas water heater. When you peel off the outside, this is what you get. And so what I'm going to do here is basically cut off the top and bottom and make a stove maybe about that long. Now it looks like most of this, the metal parts of this thing are still in pretty good shape, so this should work just fine. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is cut off this bottom section right here. As you can see, there's a little bit of rust here, so that's probably a good thing to cut off. And the top here looks to be in good shape, so I'm going to use this as the back of the stove and eventually cut a flue in here, a little pipe. And you can see I've drawn this line around here to cut. And as you can see, that's 32 inches from back to front, and that's probably about the size I want to use for this stove. This pipe is still welded at this end and that end, and that's what's holding the bottom on right now. So I'll have to cut this pipe out at this end right here, and then I should be able to pull it off. Okay, a little cutting, and we got it cut out. Okay, there it is. There's that bottom end, and when we get finished, this is going to be the front end of the stove, and I've got to weld onto that a plate that we can make a door and other such things in. This is my chimney pipe, and it's steel. It's about 1/8 of an inch thick, I think the walls are. Now, I had to buy a 6-foot piece of this because that was the minimum quantity the supplier would sell me, but they were kind enough to at least cut it in half so I could get it in my car. So what I'm going to do right now is just cut off a chunk of this, 9 inches right here, because this is going to be my flue. Okay, there's my piece of pipe. Now what I've got to do is go out and cut a contour on this so that this fits on the outside of that water heater. Look at that. It's not perfect, you know, there's small gaps, but they're all pretty small, and when they're that small, you can weld up to it and it'll work just fine. Now what I've got to do is drill a hole through here and a hole through here so that I can put a flapper valve in there. Cut off the airflow to slow the fire down. Oh, one more thing before we weld it up. There's got to be a hole in here. What I've done here is drawn a little circle and a little circle inside, and I'm going to use the grinder here to cut out an opening here so that the exhaust gases will get out of there. So here we go. So cut a little hole in there, and so now we can start to weld this chimney down on top of it. And if you look at it, it's not too neat, but you know, this will never show. It doesn't need to be neat. It's just got to be functional. So you put this on top of here, and then you can see how it covers the ground nicely. Right there, see that? Covers the ground nicely, and then we'll weld this chimney up around it, and that should work. Well, I've got it welded up. And like I said, I'm not the best welder in the world, but I don't think there's any gaps in it. It's going to hold. I don't think there's going to be any air leaks in it. It looks kind of sloppy, but that's about the best I can do for welding. So now the next thing is I've got this plate here. Now that's going to go on the front. Okay, so there we are. And what I'm going to try to do is put a weld bead down there all the way around that, and then after we get it welded, I'll trim that back so it matches the front. Okay, as you can see, I've got the weld all done all the way around here. Now what I've got to do is take my grinder. This is going to take some time. Take my grinder and cut this all off, cut this all around here. So we'll get to that right now. Okay, so for our stove here, it doesn't look too bad. There's the front chimney, and what we've got to do here is put the door and all that kind of stuff on here, and then we've got to weld the flapper valve in here, and then we've got to put some legs on it. So it looks like it's coming along. Okay, there's our door, and got some hinges here, and we'll do a little bit of welding now. The door works. Now I gotta do something to keep it from pushing in there all the way, so I'm gonna put a little there we go. There we go. And this is a magnet to hold it on until I can get the weld. Okay. Well, it's looking like I've got it done here. You can, well, not done, but I've got some hinges on it. They're welded on. And you see what I've done? This plate here, I've got some steel on the edges here so that it closes and it'll that catches it so it doesn't close too far. Now I've still got to put a latch on here and put some vent holes in here so that the fire can get some air. But I've got the hardware cut out to make the latch and those mechanisms. Now what I'm going to do is have a latching bar, and that's this thing. And what it'll do, see, it'll be attached at this end back here on this side. So it'll go up and down and go on a latch. And then this will be the latching mechanism where it slides back and forth. Well, this will be on the door to hold it in place. And the actual latch will be this. It'll be turned over, of course, but this will be the actual latch. So we'll start welding those in place. Okay, we finished the stove anyway, and see, I'll show you some of the features here. You see there's some air holes here, and this little slider covers them up or opens them up. And the door works like that. It's got a little handle on it. And now the next thing to do is build the legs, because it isn't going to work on that sawhorse. We're in my workshop now that I'm in the middle of building. And you can see it's kind of rough in here. Now, the reason I'm building this is so that here when the winter comes, I'll have some heat in here. But what I've done since it was outside is I've built a stand for it now. What I built this out of is some stock that I had that looked like this. I had some 10-foot pieces out there, And all I've done is cut them into shape and make this little stand that I've got here. Rests on 3 little shelves down here, 3 little pieces of stock. It's squeezed in by this on both sides. I've stabilized the construction with these cross member beams, and as you can see, it's pretty solid. What I've done here is I've put 2 nuts on both sides of this and tightened it down so that this grabs the rod here pretty good. And as you can see, if there's enough light there, you can see it turns that. Now on this side, I just put one of these things and basically have a lock washer here to apply a little pressure. Now these 2 nuts here are locked in place, and the one back here is just providing some friction against that lock nut up from this side. So what happens is basically you can turn this and it'll stay where you put it. This piece goes on top of here. Now what this is an 8-inch pipe. And what this diameter here is between 6 and 7 inches. So it's an oddball thing. A 6-inch pipe won't fit inside without air leaks. And an 8-inch pipe is too big for the outside. So what I did was I took an 8-inch pipe and I cut some slits in the bottom here so that I could compress this. And I've got a compression band on this. And so what it does is it fits right on top of here. And it's compressed a little bit too much right now, so I'm not going to try to fit it on there to show you. But that's basically where it goes. And then you tighten it up with that. And on the top, it comes out as a 6-inch pipe. Now, the next thing is to get through the wall. I've cut a hole in the wall. Now, that's wood, and on the outside is a covering of sheet metal. But, you know, the pipe gets hot, so you've got to protect the wood and everything from the heat, especially the wooden part inside that window. So, here's how I'm going to do that. Over here I've got 2 fittings that are back to back with a small piece in between. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a slit, because this end is a 6-inch pipe and so is that end. Now a 6-inch pipe is like this. That won't fit in there. It'll fit over it. See if I can show you this. It'll fit over it. But I want it to go inside. And the reason that is if I get a 6-inch pipe going through there, there's a nice little air gap here to insulate the heat and so forth inside as it penetrates the wall. What I want to do is make sure that this wide area is insulated from the heat of this pipe as much as possible. And the best way to do that is to provide an air gap. There. There we go. As you can see, I've got to cut this off to smooth that up. But there's about 4 inches extending on both sides of good stuff, and it's clamped in there really well. And on this side, the same thing. I've probably got I could probably just straighten that up and make it work because it's not bent too bad. But we've got our insulated through wall pipe. Okay, the way we're going to go through the wall on this is, you can see I've cut a piece of corrugated sheet metal, and I've cut out a slot here for that 8-inch pipe. Now I've got another one on the top here. What we're going to do then is, you see, put the 8-inch pipe through here and lower this down until it fits the 8-inch pipe perfectly, and then screw that all, attach that to the wall, and do the same thing on the outside. So this is what is going to support that pipe itself. There is one more thing. As you can see, the sides here are wood, and there's nothing here. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some sheeting on here, some metal sheeting on here, so that that wood is protected from whatever heat that 8-inch outer pipe gives off. Okay, the stove is in place, and there's the pipe going through the wall, and got a little bit of heat shield in back of it. And right now it needs some more work to finish installing it properly, but for right now I'm going to put a fire in it to see just how it performs. I have these bags of concrete. I've got lots of these. They're left over from all the concrete I was pouring. So I'm going to try to burn that. It isn't much, but it's enough to see if the airflow and all the burning issues are proper. So here goes. Got to get an air draft through there. Okay, now let's see. That looks like, yeah. There we go. Then let's close this. You won't be able to see it anymore. Let's see if it keeps burning. It looks like it's burning. So, okay, that's what we want to see. You can see that smoke rising. Now that needs to be secured properly, but this is just to make sure that the airflow and everything is right. And it looks pretty good to me. So you got some neighbors there that are kind of interested in what's going on. Well, it's looking good. The smoke is going where it's supposed to go, and the wood is burning. So we'll let that little bit of wood burn down. And I know the stove is getting hot. I touched it a minute ago. It's very hot. Now what we need to do is make sure that the pipe, as it goes through the wall, isn't getting very hot. So we'll check all that out, and looks good so far. Okay, so the finished chimney looks like that. You can see a little bit of smoke coming out of there maybe. Let me get over here where, yeah, there you go. There's just a little something burning in there, but that's it. And looks like that's going to work. Now I got to finish doing things inside the shop to contain the heat.